girls and squirrels, happy Wednesday and welcome back to my channel.
Hi, I'm Christina Sherilyn and I'm a vintage reseller, which means I rummage through people's unwanted items and find the most amazing vintage pieces to give them a second chance. I love styling up vintage clothing in a modern way, investigating the history of each piece, and most of all, I love the treasure hunt. So follow along on my journey and let's see what we can find.
So as you guys may have noticed, vintage lingerie and sleepwear have become very popular at the moment. They're a huge trend for spring and summer. So I thought I would make this the next video in my types of series. This is a series on my channel where I go over the different types of a certain garment, like tops or dresses. I will leave that playlist linked down in the description box below if you want to check out the other videos in this series. But today I'm going to be covering the different types of vintage lingerie and sleepwear and give you guys some keywords that you can use in your listings on Poshmark. Just a little disclaimer before we get started. As always, there are tons of different types of lingerie and sleepwear out there, and I may miss a few. But for this video, I just want to stick to the types of lingerie that are very popular right now in the fashion world. As always, if you guys have any further knowledge, please feel free to leave it down in the comments below and start that discussion down there. I would love to hear from you. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, so starting with the basics, let's start with slips. So this is a huge trend right now. So for the slips, we have a full slip and a half slip, also known as a slip dress or a slip skirt. These are usually made out of a satin material or a rayon. So these were created to add an extra layer of fabric to garments that were a little more sheer. So that way your undergarments couldn't be seen through your dress or skirt. Like I said, they're typically a thinner material. They're usually rayon or a satin material, and they are not very elaborate. The most detail they'll have is some lace trim or some lace right on the bust, but other than that, they usually don't have a lot of added details to them. So that leads me to the camisole, which is also known as the cami. So when I post this type of top, I like to use both terms just in case to cover all my bases. So a camisole is just like a slip. It's usually satin or rayon, but it is just a tank top. Now there is a longer style camisole, which is called a chemise. This just refers to a camisole that's a little bit longer and adds a little more coverage. Typically it has slits on the side and the hem kind of like scoops down like this. That is called a chemise. And like I said, it's longer than a camisole, but it's not long enough to be considered a full slip or a dress. And that leads me to what is called a teddy. A teddy is kind of like a camisole, but with shorts attached. I guess it would be the modern day equivalent to a bodysuit. They typically have the little shorts that kind of like flare out. They kind of come up the hip a little bit and they just flare out. They're super cute. They're very pin-up girl. They're not typically tight like a bodysuit. I would say it's more loose like a romper, but it's a little more sexy. So that is called a teddy. Moving on to nightgown. Now, nightgowns come in all shapes, all kinds of fabrics. There are a ton of styles of nightgowns. Now, how you can tell the difference between a slip and a nightgown, because sometimes it can be a little hard. This is an example. Nightgowns can be made of this very lightweight kind of slip material. As you see, it has a lot of added detail to it. It has the kind of eyelet lace, it has the scallops, it has this little bow, whereas a slip will either just be plain rayon with no added details, or it will just have lace trim. So that's how you can tell the difference if you come across a nightgown that is more slip material. Now, of course, there are nightgowns that are made of cotton and flannel. The flannel ones tend to be long sleeve, and they usually have a puff sleeve and a dramatic collar. Those were worn in the fall and winter. So like I said, there's a ton of different nightgowns. Quick little rabbit trail. I actually cut this nightgown because someone had cut it but didn't actually hem it. So I cut it into a top and just tucked it into jeans. There's a little tip for you if you find a nightgown that maybe has a stain at the bottom that you can't get out, just cut it and turn it into a top. Alrighty, so let's talk about bed jackets and robes. So a bed jacket either has sleeves or it can be in the style of a cape. It is a crop style, it's shorter, and it can be in a thin or thick material just depending on what season it it was made for. And that brings us into robes. We all know what a robe is. It can come in fabrics anywhere from rayon, satin, silk, terry cloth, flannel. There's a ton of fabrics that robes can be made in, and typically they have a tie around the waist. Now, there is a different style robe that is made of chiffon. They are completely see-through. They usually have a really pretty neckline, and they have a tie at the neck, and that's usually the only closure that they have. They don't have buttons or a tie around the waist. It's typically just a tie at the neck, and that is called a peignoir. They also come with a sheer nightgown, kind of in this style, but this would be maybe like lace or something like that, and then this part would be completely sheer chiffon. So they usually come in sets like that. I actually have this nightgown from a peignoir set in my Poshmark closet right now, so there's a good example of what one looks like. So again, negligee or peignoir refers to a sheer chiffon nightgown or robe. That brings us to the kimono. Now, the kimono typically has those wide boxy sleeves, and it is usually a bold Japanese floral print. And last but not least, we have the corset and the bustier. So the only difference between a corset and a bustier is a bustier has clearly defined cups. So here's an example. As you can see, you can tell on the bustier that it has a clearly defined bra style top, and the corset does not. The corset is more of a flat, all one piece style. Alrighty, so that does it for today's video. Like I said, if you guys have any more information on vintage lingerie or sleepwear, please feel free to leave that knowledge down in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. If you like this video, please be sure and give it a thumbs up on your way out. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and join our family. We would love to have you. I put new videos out every Wednesday and Friday, and I will see you guys on Friday. Bye, guys.